The stars shimmered like scattered diamonds across the canvas of space, indifferent to the turmoil unfolding beneath them. For centuries, the galaxy had known only one truth. The Empire ruled all. Its fleets were unmatched, its technology centuries ahead of its rivals, and its reach extended from the edge of the Orion Veil to the core worlds of the Andromeda Fold. Peace, if it could be called that, was enforced by dreadnoughts the size of cities and emperors who never showed their faces. Resistance was not just futile. It was unthinkable. Earth, tucked away in the outer arms of the galaxy, had escaped the Empire's attention for longer than most. Technologically primitive, politically fragmented, and rich in nothing but blue oceans and sentimental value, it posed no strategic threat. Some in the Empire believed it quaint, a cultural fossil. Others didn't believe it existed at all. It was a forgotten world, until it refused to surrender. The order had been simple: assimilation or annihilation. A scout fleet was dispatched, led by Lord Admiral Carrick Vaughn, a brutal tactician and veteran of 3 sector-wide purges. He had turned planets to ash without ever stepping foot on them. Yet, when he entered Sol System, he found no formal resistance. No shields, no fleet, just silence. He'd expected trembling diplomats and surrender codes. What he received instead was a message: turn back. Earth is not yours. Captain Alara Miles watched that message being transmitted from the command deck of Earth's Orbital Defense Station, Salus 9. She was a composite of Earth's future, raised in the Arctic enclaves after the collapse, fluent in both quantum engineering and military protocol. The War Council had chosen her not for her rank, but for her resolve. She had lost a brother to an earlier border skirmish with Empire scouts, and she'd vowed Earth would never mourn that way again. "We can't match their firepower," said Lieutenant Rowe, watching the long-range sensors paint an increasingly red picture of the incoming fleet. But Project Horizon, if it even works, wasn't designed to. Alara nodded. Her fingers hovered over the interface, hesitant. Horizon was no myth. It was real. It had taken a generation of silence, global unity, and sacrifice to develop it beneath the crust of the Pacific Trench. No one on the station or the planet knew exactly how it functioned, only that it would be deployed when all else failed. It was not a weapon in the traditional sense. It was something else entirely, and Earth had never wanted to use it. On the bridge of the Imperial flagship Sovereign Wraith, Admiral Vaughn watched the pale blue orb of Earth grow in his viewport. He was annoyed. This entire operation was beneath him. Still, protocol demanded spectacle. He intended to make the annihilation of Earth a message, an unspoken warning etched into galactic memory. He gestured, and the signal was sent. 10 hours to surrender or 10 minutes to oblivion. Back on Earth, governments had gone quiet. There were no press briefings, no riots. The world had known for weeks this moment was coming. The population had prepared in silence. Distributed resource bunkers, off-grid communication nodes, the reactivation of dormant defense satellites. But above all, Earth had placed its trust in Horizon. At hour 9, the Empire sent a second signal. A child's voice, softly echoing across the airwaves. Manipulative, calculated. "We don't want to hurt you. Let us help you become better." Alara's fist clenched. She turned to Rowe. "Activate the relay. Initiate pre-launch sequence. But we haven't run the final sync. We don't have time." Far beneath the Pacific Ocean, deep inside a chamber carved into the Earth's mantle, a quiet hum began. It vibrated across tectonic plates, whispering to every sensor grid, every subspace relay. Horizon stirred. Not a cannon, not a missile, but a fold in space itself, anchored to Earth's magnetic field, waiting to be unspooled like a slingshot pulled against the fabric of reality. Vaughn's fleet formed its siege line. Star Hunters, fast attack cruisers, swarmed forward to disable orbiting satellites. They were met with token resistance, little more than decoys. The Admiral gave the final command: "Begin cleansing." In the second that followed, 10 beams of energy lanced down toward the planet. Control bursts meant to eliminate known military targets without damaging population centers. The Empire's signature move, dominance with restraint. Predictable, arrogant, they never reached the surface. Instead, they bent, To the Empire, space was a constant. Mass and velocity, numbers and trajectories. But Horizon had rewritten those rules. The beams curled mid-flight, redirected into the void, disassembled at a quantum level. One looped back, striking the ship that fired it. Another blinked entirely out of detectable space. Impossible, one of Vaughn's subcommanders muttered. Scan again, Vaughn snapped. Their shield tech can't do that. It's not shielding, sir. It's space itself. It's been altered. On Salus. 9, Ilera exhaled slowly. The feedback from Horizon's test pulse had been promising, but untested at this scale. Send the final code, she said. The station's AI, Halcyon, executed the command. A single pulse of data was sent directly into the Horizon core. Silence. Then the stars themselves shifted. From a vantage point of nearby moons, it looked as if the Empire's fleet had suddenly frozen. Not visually. Their engines still flared. Lights blinked. But in subspace, where faster-than-light computation and communication took place, they were isolated, cut off, severed from the lattice that allowed them to operate above the speed of light. One by one, their systems failed. Guidance scrambled. Internal logic corrupted. Hull materials reversed polar orientation and collapsed on themselves. In less than 4 minutes, 37 capital ships vanished. No explosions. No wreckage. Just absence. As if they'd been erased by the universe itself. Ilera stared at the screen, stunned. Even she hadn't believed Horizon would work this well. The AI pinged gently. Remaining Imperial ships, 14. Trajectory, retreat. Only one transmission reached the remaining ships, broadcast from Earth in every known galactic language. This is not a weapon. It is a warning. Leave now. And they did. In the dark vacuum beyond Earth's orbit, Admiral Vaughn's ship drifted. Systems offline. Crew unconscious. The Admiral stood alone on the bridge, trembling, not with fear, with confusion, with the unsettling realization that something had just shattered the laws his empire had taken for granted. Earth, the forgotten world, had whispered a truth the galaxy would never unhear. As Salus. 9 went silent, and the glow of Horizon receded into the earth. Ilera turned away from the display. They'll be back, Rose said. She nodded. Next time, they won't get a warning. The stars above flickered on, uncaring as always. But now, one of them burned just a little brighter. The sky above Earth was unusually calm. Clouds drifted undisturbed across blue horizons, oblivious to the grave silence radiating from orbit. Below, cities remained powered down, entire grids rerouted to the global defense lattice. Schools were closed, civilians sheltered, but there was no panic. People had been told what they needed to know, enough to feel the weight of the moment, not enough to fear it. Earth had made its choice. Ilera Miles stood inside the command core of Salus 9, watching as live telemetry unfolded like a slow heartbeat. The Empire's retreat had left behind a void, but not for long. They would regroup. No empire survived centuries by quitting. This was only the beginning. The Council had gone silent since the strike. Earth's global network, ArcNet, was now under the sole jurisdiction of Horizon's operating system. Halcyon, Earth's first quantum-integrated artificial mind, had been integrated not as a military leader, but as a moral counterbalance. Horizon was not a tool to be wielded in vengeance. It was a safeguard. You've reviewed the simulations? Ilera asked, her voice quiet, measured. Ro nodded from the adjacent console. His face looked more drawn than usual. If they return with a second fleet, and if they adapt to the field manipulations, Horizon might not function the same way. At best, we stall them. At worst, we provoke something we can't contain. Have they adapted before? Ro shook his head. No one has ever forced them to. That was the difference. Humanity hadn't just resisted. It had reversed the rules. But Earth's great weapon was now known, and the element of surprise had vanished. The Empire's silence wasn't surrender. It was calculation. Hours passed. Across the Sol system, defense satellites recalibrated. Subspace comms detected nothing but background radiation. Then, at 3:11 Universal Time Coordinated, Halcyon pinged a priority alert. Something's coming. Illyra turned. The display shifted to deep-range scans. Not just ships, an entire flotilla, 5 times the size of the first. And at its center, a vessel the likes of which Earth had never seen. Obsidian black, larger than the moon's arcologies, and encased in what Halcyon identified as phase-locked armor, a theoretical material designed to exist outside standard space-time interaction. Designation, Roe whispered. Halcyon responded, Crucible. The Empire had sent its godship back in the Arctic expanse. The final sequence of Project Horizon began. The cryoreactor beneath the ice awakened, consuming isotopes harvested over 20 years from deep Earth caverns. Power surged through ley lines of synthetic lattice, converging into a crystalline core capable of fracturing physical constants. Horizon was a response, not an attack. But now Earth was being asked to answer with more than silence. Illyra returned to the surface temporarily via atmospheric drop pod. The Council had recalled her. Officially, Earth still observed protocol. Unofficially, everyone knew her decisions were now being followed without hesitation. She walked into the chamber, a Spartan room buried beneath the Himalayas, its walls thick with quantum dampeners. Chairwoman Indira low met her gaze. They've sent the Crucible. What we feared is here. I know, Illyra replied. I've seen the scans. Then you also know Horizon won't work the same way this time. Illyra didn't flinch. We have contingencies. Indira leaned forward. No, we have ethics, and a planet full of people who still believe in restraint. I'm not proposing a first strike. No. The chairwoman's eyes narrowed. Then what are you proposing, Commander? Illyra inhaled. Let them begin it. We'll finish it. And this time, we show them Horizon was not the only secret Earth kept. By the time Illyra returned to Salus 9, the fleet had entered lunar range. The Crucible did not broadcast. It didn't need to. It simply moved, slow, silent, certain. Its gravity well distorted the orbit of nearby satellites. 2 stations were crushed under tidal forces before they could evacuate. The rest went dark. Halcyon spoke only once. I am requesting permission to engage Tier 2 protocols. No, Illyra said instantly. We escalate only when there's no alternative. Moments later, the Crucible deployed its first wave. Not fighters, not bombers, but machines, orbital drones designed to rewrite the structure of physical systems. They converted matter, not through force, but through recursion, reality loops. They unmade what they touched slowly, piece by piece, rewriting it into blankness. The first drone touched one of Earth's geosynchronous stations. The station didn't explode. It simply ceased, gone without heat or debris, a surgical erasure. Now, Illyra said, Horizon activated again, but not in the same form. The field deployed was narrower, less absolute. It collapsed the airspace around Earth's inner orbit, creating a spherical null zone. Drones that entered were shattered, but the Crucible held back, watching, learning. Halcyon, Illyra said, calculate risk ratio if Tier 2 is deployed now. Estimated risk to planetary infrastructure, 17%. Estimated success probability, 54%. Unacceptable. Then came the voice, cracked, aged, in a dialect ancient and alien. It spoke directly through the vacuum, encoded in quantum filament. Surrender your mechanism. We will not ask again. No name, no emotion, a voice that had presided over genocide as easily as breathing. Illyra felt her pulse spike. Transmit response, she said. Halcyon waited. Illyra's lips barely moved. Come and take it. The Crucible moved forward, and Earth, at last, stepped fully into the war it never asked for. Far beneath the surface, a second chamber came online. Never activated before, not even in simulation. Not Horizon. Something older. Something buried when Earth was still divided by borders and flags. A relic found decades ago, in orbit around Jupiter. Not made by humans. Not by the Empire. A third voice in a conflict of two. As its systems booted up, Halcyon whispered across the neural network to Alara. There is another way. Alara closed her eyes. Show me. The crucible eclipsed the moon, and the sky began to burn. The alien device beneath Europa's frozen surface had been silent for centuries, entombed in ice and mystery. It had no known origin, bore no language, no discernible control interface. When Earth scientists found it during the first Man-Jovian expedition, they'd mistaken it for inert debris. Only later, after a sensor anomaly on its fifth pass, did they realize it was responding to neural activity. Even then, the consensus had been cautious. Study, not activate. But now, with the crucible descending upon Earth, caution had become a luxury no one could afford. Alara stood at the center of Salus 9's command ring, eyes locked on the simulation window, where projections spiraled into increasingly grim conclusions. The crucible had begun to deploy its primary weapon systems, subspace siege nodes capable of bypassing localized dimensional folds. They were not built to destroy. They were designed to erase. Ro turned to her. Halcyon's data confirms what we suspected. Horizon's manipulation field is insufficient. It cannot overwrite what the crucible is built from. It's not of this physics. Alara finished. We're outmatched. He didn't argue. Instead, he whispered. Then we use the artifact. Halcyon's voice, smoother than any human's, carried no judgment. Initiating neural handshake with the dormant entity now. A low-frequency vibration began to hum beneath Alara's feet. Salus 9 structure shivered, not from impact, but from some deeper resonance, as if the station itself were momentarily unsure of its place in space. On the holoscreen, the ancient object now lit up a lattice of unfamiliar symbols, impossibly precise geometric etchings, constantly shifting, recoding, adapting. Halcyon translated what it could. Cognition interface unlocked. Awaiting integration. Ro looked to Alara, then the display. You have to go in. It won't respond to simulations anymore. It's waiting for something or someone. Alara stepped forward without hesitation. She was led to the neural integration chamber, a narrow cradle of obsidian black alloy forged with memory foam laced in quantum thread. As she lay back, contact nodes slid into place along her skull and spine. The room fell away. The world blinked. Then, she was no longer on the station. She stood in an endless white field. No sky, no floor, just a sensation of forward motion without direction. Something stirred before her, immense, layered, unknowable. Not alive, but not dead either. It communicated not with sound, but with understanding. It showed her images, stars collapsing in slow motion, galaxies breaking apart not through time, but through decision. And then it showed her Earth, not as it was, but as it could become, something more. A thought came to her, not her own, yet perfectly clear. You are not what they expected. She replied without words, we are what we had to become. Another pause. Then, purpose. Define it. She hesitated. Survival, freedom, sovereignty. The presence pulsed an acknowledgement. Then it shifted. A different vision. One of Earth interfacing with the device, not controlling it, but harmonizing. The idea wasn't to wield the object like a sword. It was to become part of the system it belonged to, a balancing force. Outside the chamber, Ro watched as Alara's vitals fluctuated wildly. Halcyon monitored closely, its processors branching into fractal algorithms just to keep up with the neural translation. The crucible had drawn closer now, well within Earth's gravity threshold. Any further, and its presence alone could destabilize the upper ionosphere. Suddenly, Salus 9 sensors flared. The object beneath Europa had begun to move. It did not fly. It shifted through space, bypassing all gravitational influence. As it approached Earth, Empire sensors pinged it as a weapon-class anomaly. The crucible turned, reacting for first time with anything resembling urgency. Thousands of drones launched from its flanks, swarming toward the object like hornets toward a flame. The object did not attack. It simply radiated. The drones began to disintegrate, but not physically. Their code broke apart. Their logic collapsed. They lost the will to function. Even Halcyon struggled to articulate what it was seeing. We are observing systemic denial of coherent identity. The artifact is dissolving intent. Illyra's eyes opened. She wasn't the same. Not entirely. The bond had left a mark, a deeper awareness, as if her mind now existed in multiple layers. She stood and returned to command deck with quiet determination. The object isn't a weapon, she said. It's a rebalancer. It operates on the principles of entropy management. It can rewrite systems that reach a point of unjust complexity. Ro blinked. You're saying it's judging them? I'm saying it's correcting them. Outside, the artifact moved past Earth, directly into the Crucible's path. The Empire's flagship unleashed everything. Particle beams, gravity lashes, even a dimensional rupture warhead. Nothing struck true. Every attack was redirected, folded away, or neutralized before it could reach the object's surface. Then it responded. The light was not blinding. It was absolute, not an explosion, but a redefinition. In a single flash, the Crucible stopped being a ship. It became a pattern, then a suggestion, then nothing. Its presence vanished from every layer of existence Earth could measure. Silence followed. Illyra looked at the still sky, then to Ro. It didn't destroy them. It erased the system they represented. Do you think they'll understand? No, she said, but someone will. A message was broadcast moments later, not from Earth, not from Halcyon, but from the artifact itself, across frequencies not yet invented by humanity. Correction initiated. Resistance is not required. Harmonization begins. Illyra turned to the stars. The fight wasn't over. The Empire still lived in distant corners of the galaxy, but something greater had entered the arena, and Earth had been chosen, not to lead, but to remind. Beneath her feet, the hum of the artifact faded into stillness. For now. But Illyra knew the truth. Balance, once awakened, does not sleep. The world did not erupt in celebration. There were no parades, no declarations of victory, no grand speeches to signal the end of Earth's greatest existential threat. The Crucible was gone, erased by a force no human truly understood. Yet silence followed, deeper than before. Across the continents, people emerged cautiously from shelters, blinking at the unchanged sky, wondering if what they'd feared had actually passed. Illyra remained at Salus, 9, her eyes never leaving the orbital telemetry. The artifact now floated in geostationary orbit above the Pacific, inert but watchful. Halcyon continued to monitor its emissions, though they had dropped to almost imperceptible levels, as if the machine or entity had entered a state of contemplative dormancy. They're watching, Rose said quietly. Who? Everyone. The colonies, the outposts, even the neutral networks. They're waiting to see if Earth becomes the thing it just defied. Illyra folded her arms. She had slept only 2 hours in the last 3 days, and fatigue traced shadows beneath her eyes. We won't. The artifact isn't ours. It never was. It made that clear. But we touched it, Rose said. You did. And that makes us dangerous, at least in the eyes of the Empire's remnants. That's their fear to carry, she replied. Halcyon interrupted with a soft tone. A signal has been received. Illyra's breath slowed. From where? Outside the map lattice of known space. Extramaterial origin. Translated into Earth language. Display it. A single phrase appeared on the screen, scrolling across slowly. Concordance is earned, not inherited. Silence followed. Rose stepped forward. Concordance, like alignment? Illyra stared. Or consent. Agreement. A signal of peace, but only if we uphold it. Halcyon's voice was gentle. There is more. Embedded within the transmission is a cascade of data, technological frameworks, schematics, and, most significantly, linguistic code, matching a set of dormant glyphs in our ancient human record. Rose's eyes widened. You mean they've contacted us before? Not them, Halcyon said, but others like them. Entities that visited long before written history. Traces of their language remain in Mesopotamian inscriptions, Mayan monuments, even subterranean cave systems in what is now Siberia. Illyra turned slowly. They've been watching for a long time. Halcyon did not answer. Outside the viewport, Earth shone calmly. No battle scarred its orbit now. The last of the Empire's tracking drones had been purged, and its last communiques, angry, fragmented bursts of Imperial doctrine, flickered out hours ago. But something deeper had changed, not just geopolitically, cosmically. Any movement from the outer colonies? Elara asked. Ro nodded slowly. Some have gone dark, probably isolating themselves, unsure how much power Earth now truly holds. Others are requesting diplomatic channels. They want to know if the artifact will be shared. It's not ours to share, Elara said, and it doesn't want to be used. It made that clear. Still, he said carefully, we need a doctrine, something to prevent a new Cold War. Elara nodded. We'll convene the council again. A real one this time. Not just leaders, but voices from every sector. No more secrets. We survived because we evolved, not just technologically, but ethically. We held the line without becoming what we hated. Barely, Ro murmured. She smiled faintly. Barely is enough. As days passed, Earth systems began restoring themselves. Power grids surged back to life. Communication relays flickered on, and civilian broadcasts resumed. News anchors spoke in hushed tones, unsure how to frame what had happened. Scientists released heavily redacted reports on Horizon and the artifact, trying to convey truth without inciting paranoia. But not everyone remained quiet. In the former Empire-controlled sectors of Orion's reach, a fragmented remnant command began broadcasting its own interpretation of the events. They labeled Earth's weaponry, the heresy of entropy, and the artifact a rogue construct unaligned with cosmic law. Their rhetoric hinted at retribution, but their fleets had scattered. They were broken. Still, no one believed they would remain so forever. Elara sat with Ro in a private observation deck, a simple room of steel and glass facing the stars. She held a tablet, data pouring in from Halcyon about the Concordance protocols embedded in the alien message. Not weapons, not tools, ideas. I think it's offering us something more than alliance, she said. What then? Perspective, she replied. It's challenging us to see civilization not as a ladder, but as a field, to stop climbing and start connecting. Ro leaned back, his gaze tracing the light trails of distant satellites. You realize most of Earth isn't ready for that. Half of our leaders still think in binaries. Us versus them, strong versus weak. Then we show them a third option, Elara said. Coexistence without domination. The artifact pulsed gently once more in orbit, its glow now steady, less ominous. A presence, not a threat. Halcyon, breaking the quiet again, announced, a final transmission has arrived. Another phrase, this one shorter. Prepare. Ro turned sharply. Prepare for what? Elara's expression hardened. Maybe for more of them. Maybe for the next stage. Whatever it means, we won't face it alone this time. She stood and walked to the viewport. The stars no longer felt distant. They felt near, within reach. But they also felt alive, as though the universe itself had begun to watch Earth with new eyes. Behind her, Ro said quietly, Do you think they chose us? No, she said. We chose ourselves. That's what made the difference. As she watched the stars pulse gently in the black, Elara felt no triumph, only clarity. The war was not over. It had merely shifted planes. But Earth had learned to stand without begging, to build without conquering. And when something ancient and vast had looked down upon it, it had found something worth sparing, not because Earth was powerful, because it remembered how to hope. And somewhere beyond the arc of Neptune, a new signal was already approaching.